If you are a filmmaker and always have troubles while you are editing 4K footage, or you're doing some crazy color grading techniques, editing needs to be fun and you don't want to worry all the time about your system that might crash. And that's why I am going to tell you my build and why I choose specific items for video editing. And the first thing we're gonna talk about is the CPU. So the more cores and threads the CPU has, the faster it will go. I bought the Ryzen 9 and oh boy, I really love it. It's fast. I don't have any problems anymore while editing 4K footage. But guys, important, if you attach your CPU on your motherboard, always put some cooling pasta on your CPU to keep it cool during the edits. The CPU comes with a cooler, but I decided to buy a separate one. So now let's talk about the cooler that I use for my CPU. The cooler Master Hyper 2012. And guys, it was even better than I expected. What I really love about this cooler is it does the job, but it is very quiet. And now, you know, cooling my PC is just excellent. So guys, one thing I want to tell you, I'm not a tech guy, but if you are not experienced with building a computer, this cooler Master Hyper is not that hard to install. So now, really nice, let's dive a little bit deeper. Let us talk about the motherboard. The motherboard will allow the CPU, RAM, graphic cards and SSD to talk to each other. Without a motherboard, guys, the computer could not talk to each other, could not interact with any of these computer pieces. So the motherboard that I bought was the ASRock X570 Steel Legend. It's a very popular motherboard and has pretty much every feature that you will need to have for 4K editing. And one major selling point for me was that this motherboard works perfectly together with my AMD Ryzen 9. And I will put a link below this video of all the items that I bought to build this computer. Alright, so the downside of this motherboard is that it comes without a built-in Wi-Fi system. But for me that was not a big problem, and for every problem, guys, there is a solution. So I just bought a wireless Wi-Fi adapter that delivers me really nice and fast Wi-Fi. So let's talk about RAM. RAM stands for Random Access Memory. Computer RAM is essentially memory of what your computer needs to access the programs. I want to have a lot of RAM, so I decided to buy the Corsair 32GB, and I bought 2 of them, so in total that's 64 gigabytes. And guys, if that is not enough for you, I always can upgrade in my motherboard another Corsair 32GB. But believe me, in my case, for 4K editing, 64 gigabyte is more than enough. Next, we have the SSD, and an SSD is comparable to a hard drive. But an SSD is much faster, it is more energy efficient, and it is more reliable. You can save all your video files and cache files on it, and you can install your operation system on your SSD to boot your PC many times faster. The SSD that I bought is the Kingston A2000 1TB. I bought 2 of them, so it's 2 TB of capacity, and it has an impressive read and write speed up to 2000 megabits. It's fast and it's cheap, and I always have enough space to store my footage on. That's the most important thing, right? Alright, guys, are you ready? Because now we're gonna talk about the video cards. And guys, the amount of video cards they released is just crazy. All right, it is insane. We don't have even enough chips in the world right now, but it's just just crazy. And yes, I also ordered the RTX 3080, and I ordered it on 21 September 2020, and I am still waiting. I'm still waiting, but I am patient. It's hard, but I'm patient because I know that this is just a great video card for this build. So let's talk a little bit about this video card. It's the RTX 3080, 10 GB. It's a powerful video card for both gamers and editors. The 3080 is a successor of the 2080, but it is much faster. It's one of the few chipsets that allows you to flow through your timeline while you're using really heavy color grading tools, or you're using just really heavy effects, whatever. It can handle it all, and you will see everything very smooth on your timeline. It can handle 4K, even up to 6K. I think it can handle 8K, and that's because it has a really high clock speed. Luckily, I have a really good friend, and he had I think it's just a really perfect video card for me to use while I'm still waiting on the 3080. So in the meantime, I'm using the Asus GeForce GTX 1060 6 GB. Yeah, in combination with everything else I have, with my processor, SSD, you name it, it is just a really great video card. I can edit my footage 4K without having any problems. But if I do some heavy color grading techniques or effects, or it is a really long project, I just recognize that DaVinci, that's the software I work in, has a really hard time. All right, so a bit more patience until I have my 3080. To be able to run this video card, the 3080, you need to have at least 850 watt of power. So I bought a 850 watt power supply, a very good power supply for a very good price. It's completely modular, which helps you a lot with the cable management, and it is just really easy to install. Alright, so let's cover the case. And before we're gonna cover the case, I made a big mistake. It's not that big, but luckily for me, I could solve this mistake, this problem. Anyway, I'm just gonna talk about it because, alright guys, so important when you're gonna buy a case. Often people don't look good enough into a case. Myself, or I didn't look good into the length of my video card. It's really important to buy a decent case that provides enough airflow. All right, so I bought the Fractal designed tempered glass tower, but I thought I bought the bigger size, but I bought the small size. So when I received it and looked into it and looked again into it and looked into the length of my 3080 video card, I saw that this would not fit into my case. But guys, luckily for every problem there is a solution, and I just went on Reddit, and there was actually one guy who had the same case with the same video card, and he just simply changed the position of the ventilator, and now the card must fit. So I can imagine that you don't want to take that risk, and if you don't want to, you don't need to, just buy a bigger tower. Alright guys, so that was my computer build for video editing, and if you have any questions, I am very happy to help you. Good luck with building your own computer, and I will see you the next time. Bye bye.